Well, hello, everyone in the LinkedIn community and across East Coast, West Coast, as well as our international audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know I'm joining a little early, but don't fret. We are also recording, and the recording will be uploaded to the Clean Canvas Consulting YouTube channel, and it will also be on LinkedIn as well as usual. And I am so excited today to share this wonderful gift of an organization that I came across, gosh, I want to say something like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's the World of Business Ideas, recently rebranded to their standalone acronym known as WOBI. And today I am so privileged to have two of WOBI's members here. They'll introduce themselves shortly. I got to meet them live and since had a wonderful working relationship with both of them. And we're going to tell you today about the backstory for WOBI, a little bit about their origins, what was the purpose, and we're going to spend a good amount of time on their World Business Forum event, which is their live event. But they're also a series of products, virtual or digital products that are available on their website. We will tell you more about that in the comments. But without further ado, why don't we have Joe and Chris introduce themselves? Joe, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Renee. Yes, I'm Joe Boccardo. I'm the Regional Sales Director here at WOBI USA, based out of the New York office. I work with our direct clients and also manage our sales team here in the New York office.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. And yeah, I'm Chris Stanley. First of all, thank you, Renee, for the opportunity to connect with your community, to talk a little bit more about WOBI, WOBI's work and the World Business Forum. I've spent most of my professional career with WOBI, amazingly to say, over 18 years. I'm currently have a dual function within the organization. I'm the managing director for WOBI's operations in North America. And I'm also WOBI's global content director. So I work with putting together our programs of content with the different thought leaders that we work with around the world in our different events. We'll talk a little bit about it, the different events that we host globally around the world, whether they be in-person events as well as all of our digital programming as well. So it's that's a little bit on me. I've, as I say, 18 years with the organization, started back in 2005 in Madrid, spent 10 years in Buenos Aires, when WOBI had its headquarters down in Buenos Aires. And the last 7 years, I've been blessed to be here in the United States, living in Jersey City and working in our office in New York City and Manhattan.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Now that you mentioned some of the places that you lived, for our audience, one of the funniest memories that I have of Chris and I was last year in New York City. We were talking in between, some session or some break, and all of a sudden, Chris breaks out into this perfect Spanish, and it was quite surprising, and it reminded me never to make assumptions around people and their abilities and capabilities. So, yes.
Bueno, I'll say bienvenidos y muchas gracias a todos que estamos aquí con nosotros desde América Latina. Así que welcome everyone from Latin America and other Spanish-speaking parts of the world.
I love that. Thank you so much, Chris. I want to remind our audience, and as now is right at 12:31, we probably have our audience joining us. Don't fret. If you missed our intro, it's going to be on the replay and we will share it across YouTube as well. But I want to remind you to ask us questions throughout the session. I will be asking the team some general questions that will hopefully inform your perspective on WOBI and what it's all about. But also, if you have other questions, don't be shy. You know that I'm happy to open up the forum so that you can get your answers. Without further ado, I am going to actually direct this question to Chris, because you've been here 18 years and you probably have all sorts of wonderful information on this. So Chris, can you share with us the story behind the creation of WOBI, previously known as the World of Business Ideas, and really what inspired its specific formation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an interesting story, and we could probably spend the whole 30 minutes of our conversation on this alone. So I'll try and keep it brief, because WOBI's history actually goes back 35 years. And the origins of the company are actually in Brazil. The company was founded in Brazil in 1989, and actually even then under a different acronym. So it was actually started as HSM back in the day. And the company then was acquired by a group of Argentine entrepreneurs, and it was the Argentine owners at that time that helped grow the company. But the origins of the organization really came about having identified a need to take some of the best business management thinking outside of the business schools. So the founders of the organization were thinking about how can we take some of these great thinkers from Harvard or these other sort of business schools, iconic thinkers, people like Michael Porter and Peter Drucker and Tom Peters and Philip Kotler and people like these, who people have probably studied in business school, and actually give executives the opportunity to interact with, learn from these people in live in different parts of the world. And so the company originated by bringing these seminar experiences with individual speakers speaking about individual topics. I mentioned a few of the names there. And then over time, it has evolved and grown, developed sort of new formats, expanded into different parts of the world, but always with this same mission to try and both inform on the one hand and inspire on the other. So it's to give people the sort of ideas that are relevant to their leadership challenges that they're facing at the moment, but in a way that also leaves them energized to actually do something with those ideas. So we can, again, happy to talk more about how the evolution sort of played out over time, but yeah, that's the very beginnings of what was HSM back in the day and is today WOBI.
Chris, remind the audience, how many countries are you in?
So yeah, we currently have offices in 6 countries. So as well as here in New York, we're in Mexico, in Colombia, Latin America, in Europe, in Spain and Italy, and we're in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, and down in APAC.
Excellent, thank you. And the World Business Forum as an event, how many cities do you cover usually annually?
Yeah, so again, that varies. This year we have 6 cities. So New York, Mexico City, Bogota, Milan, Madrid, Sydney in Australia. We have done World Business Forums in many cities around the world: London, Frankfurt, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Lima in Peru. So we've, and that sort of shifts and varies. Currently this year we have plans for 6 World Business Forums in those cities.
So exciting. And we'll talk a little bit more about the New York event in a few minutes. But I now want to throw a question over to Joe. And Joe, talk to me a little bit about what the World Business Forum delivers, particularly in the US, because that's the area where you focus, but also why is it different, right? There's 1,001 leadership events, many delivered multiple times a year with different agencies. And I can certainly tell you what I think is different, but I want to hear it from you.
Sure. So I think the fact that we're able to bring together not just 1 or 2 speakers, but a full lineup of 10 just world-class speakers every year is one of the biggest differences. And I've attended some of the other sessions. I attended one last year, and I recognize that one of the biggest things is that a lot of these other forums, you need to pick and choose. Do I want to go to this session or do I need to go to this session? I think we can run into that paradox of choice, and it's not always better to have so many options. And with our event, the fact that you go and you attend every session and you hear from every one of our speakers, that's one of the biggest differences. And also the audience. We bring together just incredible people that are ready and eager to learn and change their business for the better, inspiring their leaders, changing their organizational culture, strategies in order to transform the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the difference every year. We speak with, I always have so much fun connecting with my clients after the event, and they love this speaker. They completely blew their mind hearing from like a Will Guidara last year,
Mm-hmm.
someone who was relatively unknown at the beginning of the year, and by the end of
Right.
the year, he was just absolutely everywhere. So I think that's anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, I suppose the only thing I would sort of say is just a little bit about, just to add a bit more context about why we decided to do a World Business Forum, what
Mm-hmm.
the sort of the original thinking was behind that, because I talked about, the company WOBI originated with this idea of bringing individual, very high profile or well-known speakers to talk for a day or half a day or 2 days in different parts of the world. The World Business Forum evolved is that what would happen if, rather than bringing these speakers sort of individually, we put them together on the same stage over 2 days, and we brought the best business, the best gurus, the business minds, the top CEOs that you can think of, and put them all together. And no one had done this before. This was completely revolutionary at the time. And it was the opportunity to say, what we're going to do is we're going to take the most important themes, the most important topics, and get the biggest, the best, most respected experts on those topics, put them on the stage, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people together, top executives who come and watch and learn from those, and create an experience around management, around thinking, around learning. And that was where the World Business Forum was born. And that broad value proposition of learning, inspiration, and networking has run through the last 20 years. This is our 21st edition that we have of the World Business Forum this year in New York. And that is one thing that has stayed constant throughout time.
Gosh, as you describe that, I am thinking about backstage. What is it like to have these outstanding minds that have such a studied and profound expertise and point of view on these different topics? What's it like for you? But what is it like to almost like stand and observe all of that greatness in one space?
That's such a good question. I remember my first ever World Business Forum was in 2004 in Frankfurt, and we had Henry Kissinger was speaking.
Oh wow!
And I studied politics at university, and I was literally two or 3 years out of university, and I was suddenly backstage in the green room with Henry Kissinger, and I was like, this is just incredible. This is all the things this guy's seen and done, and the influence he's had around, and just being. And I was 23, 24 years old. I was like, I had nothing really much to say to Henry at that particular point in time, but that was kind of like almost a really clear experience that I've had. And over the course of time, obviously my role within WOBI has developed and evolved and grown, and to the point now that I'm responsible for actually bringing all of these speakers together. And I've had some amazing experiences with different thinkers and experts over the course of the years. And but you're absolutely right. There is always that moment when you actually sort of backstage and you sort of shake someone's hand and you sort of say, I'll tell you, almost to a fault, they are wonderful people. They are very humble, and they do their very best to put you at your ease. But yeah, no, there is occasionally a little bit of I won't say quite starstruck, but yeah, you appreciate, let's say, the opportunity to be able to interact directly with these sorts of people that we work with.
Yeah, I totally would use starstruck. I think that's very valid. I mean, for those of us that study these different fields, oh my gosh, I remember last year seeing Marshall Goldsmith just kind of casually walking amongst the crowd, and I was like, Marshall, oh my God, right? Or seeing Simon Sinek take the stage and just be so casual and open. So yeah, I definitely see starstruck as applying. How about you, Joe? How about some of you haven't been here as long as Chris, but I'm sure you have some stories around your moment of seeing an idol.
Yeah, I was a little starstruck too when I saw Marshall Goldsmith taking a nap behind stage. But another one that really stands out 22 was my first World Business Forum, and just the first time, hearing some of the people on stage, that was great. But what really stood out was I got a really great chance to host a private event for one of my big clients, two of my big clients, with a couple different speakers. And anybody who experienced it would see that, Pat Lencioni is already just larger than life.
Oh, yeah.
And then in a small room, he just takes it over. And I thought, I was so impressed with that. And that really stuck with me. I think that kind of fortified everything for me. Like, oh, this is a really cool opportunity, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I remember reading the first book I read of Pat's was the Death by Meeting, which the title alone, I was like, that's fantastic. But not only the title, actually the very practical and easy to implement techniques that he's provided in many of the books after, whether it's the 5 dysfunctions of a team or any of the other items. And thinking about all the wonderful people in these fields, Chris, back to you, especially in your role as the content leader. How do you pick from such a wonderful array of talent in so many different fields, right? Strategy, planning, innovation. It's got to be a tough job. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, it's another good question. So it's all about the curation, and the programming is all about finding the right blend of content each year. And I think one of the things that we really sort of set you asking at the beginning, right? What sets WOBI apart from other conferences? And I think one of the things that does set us apart is the focus that we do give to the content and making that content real. And there aren't many organizations, there aren't many conferences out there that have been around for 20 years, every single year, nonstop, that we're able to get through a global pandemic, which in most situations should not, you don't come out the other side of that normally. And one of the reasons that I think WOBI did is because of the integrity of the organization, integrity of the content, the relationships we've built up over the years with these global thought leaders, and hugely importantly with our clients as a result. That appreciate what we do each year. And so to your question specifically, I mean, it's, as I say, we first of all look to think about the themes. What are the themes that we want to cover? So we want to make sure that we've covered off, the most important themes and topics. Then we want to make sure that we've got an important blend between what we might call more academic thinking on the one hand, with more practical voices, and so we have people who have actually run companies. We had Ginny Rometty speaking with us last year. I was on stage with Ingenuity in Sydney last year. I've worked with Alan Mullally before, amazing people like that. And then, on the academic side, whether it's people like Adam Grant or Simon Sinek, or previously people like Michael Porter, and some very well-known and influential sort of ideas people and thinkers. And we're always looking to try and find that blend. We always look to try and find what we call sort of the blend between sort of the big names and the slightly lesser names. If you look at our programs, you'll see there are always names which are kind of sort of household, especially if you're interested in this sort of content and leadership and management. Then there'll be names that you go, oh wow, that's he or she's there. And there are probably other names on there which you go, I have no idea who that person is, until you kind of look and read the bio and the background. And we do that deliberately as well, because we want to provide a program where people, that people are excited about in advance. It's like, oh, gee, that's an amazing opportunity. You mentioned Sinek, right? I mentioned to see Simon on stage live, but also open people's eyes to people they may not have heard about before, or whose work they haven't read about or watched before. And I know that provides a lot of value for people. And then finally, we look for normally sort of 1 or 2 figures from beyond the world of business, whether it's business thinking or actual business practice, whether that be from the arts or sports. So, we've worked with film directors like James Cameron. We have Francis Ford Coppola with us this year. We've had sports people like Michael Phelps or Andre Agassi. We maybe worked with economists. We've had people like Paul Krugman, Joseph Stiglitz, people like that, and politics as well. Politics is, I have to admit, is ever harder these days. But
Yes.
historically, people like Tony Blair and Bill Clinton and Madeleine Albright and Colin Powell, and so we've also had General David Petraeus with us speaking in New York this year. So again, so it's about finding the blend of topics, it's finding the blend of profiles, and putting together something which we hope will be powerful for our audience and our attendees.
Thank you, not just for the answer, but for the work that goes into curating the right material. It's one of the reasons that as a lifelong leadership learner and strategy and innovation and all the topics around business, why WOBI continues to be my preferred organization to work with, because it does kind of all the goodness, the best of the best, you bubble that up to the top. And even on the unknowns, I remember last year, Will Guidara was like, I'm like, who's this guy? And I have to say, oh my God, he was one of my favorite takeaways. I bought the book immediately when I got home. I read it, consumed it, now consume his newsletter. And I have The Bear on my watch list. I think it's on my Hulu watch list, and I can't wait. So really, his thinking and his point of view on hospitality is definitely mind blowing, and I would have never thought to have applied all of those lessons across so many different areas. And so thank you so much for that. I appreciate that on behalf of all the leaders that are listening. And a reminder to our listeners, if you have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. And while we wait for any of those questions, that actually, and this question can be both of you. And actually, Joe, you introduced me to this concept, but Chris, feel free to collaborate and jump in. Before COVID, and I was engaged with WOBI before, the online content was great, but it was mostly made up of clips, or, you could purchase the previous events, speakers, and so forth. And my perception, at least as a user, and one of the reasons I reached out to Joe initially, my perception all of a sudden was like, oh my God, WOBI Pass, who was historically very, again, kind of limited to some of the replays, all of a sudden, at least for me, it was like all of these different courses and the richness and the depth. And so, Joe, talk a little bit about WOBI Pass, what it is, and how people can access that, because that's a nice way to get a lot of information to develop throughout the year. But then also, Chris, talk a little bit about maybe, was COVID an ignition point for expanding the digital content? So Joe, why don't you get us started?
Sure. So our WOBI Pass gives attendees, or rather subscribers, access for a full year to our full digital catalog, like you were referring to. There's master classes from people like Adam Grant, from Carly Fiorina, Guy Kawasaki, and the list goes on. Everything from creativity and leadership to personal management and self-management, these types of topics that leaders care about. And we wanted to create a package that gives people the flexibility to view the digital masterclasses when they want, but also gives access to all of our new content during the subscription. So like we said, we have the digital or the on-demand classes that are recorded, and then we have new almost monthly events, like next week, or rather this week. Thursday, the 27th, we have a masterclass on talent coming up with Elizabeth Dunn. In fact, I'm going to be making an offer if anybody from our audience today wants to enjoy that masterclass for free. I'll be sending over a link, and you can register with me for free to come and check that out this Thursday. But yeah, the WOBI Pass, it's a really great value, whether you're looking for just an individual and looking for all that access to the content, or for a full team. And that's one of the ways that Renee and I became acquainted, was when she was with her former employer, and we figured out a great solution for them to provide massive amounts of content to a really big and dynamic team.
Thank you. How about you, Chris? Talk to us about WOBI Pass evolution.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting. Well, I find it interesting anyway, in terms of how it came about. So, digital content is actually something that we at WOBI we were ahead of the curve. We launched our first online courses back in 2000. Yeah, like right before the dot-com bubble, and in many ways, I think we're probably a bit ahead of the curve in that respect. And it, never kind of sort of evolved hugely, but we've always been sort of active in the space. And WOBI's been we're about much more than just in-person events in the World Business Forum. We started back in the day. We had a print magazine, which was the largest, the biggest selling management magazine in Latin America.
Wow.
And we've have a television. We continue to have a television channel today. And as I mentioned, we've had sort of different courses and online offerings for a number of years. And so, WOBI has always been a sort of a hub for great content. And but clearly the pandemic, by necessity, was a huge driver of the digital side of the business. So we hit, like a lot of people, March 2020, and our world got turned upside down. When sort of revenues from our World Business Forums just dried up overnight. And so in that situation, you think about how you react, and we reacted in a few different ways. First of all, we were there for our attendees, for our clients, for our customers. We just started giving away content. We started a program of webinars that we launched with a number of our speakers. We did one with Jeff Immelt, we did one with Tom Peters, we did one with Dan Pink, I remember, and a number of others, which everyone just got on board with. And we say, look, we're just going to do these. We're going to offer them these insights from these very well respected people about what's going on. People were looking for orientation at that point. And then as sort of the weeks developed, we were like, well, we're going to have to do something to stay afloat at this point. And that's where we started thinking about how we could develop sort of live digital content. Up till this point, everything we've done digitally had been recorded. So we started to do some live sessions. We've got these masterclass sessions, one speaker, one main topic, and we did the first one with Tom Peters, and then we sort of developed out a number of these, and we started doing them each month. And out of that, we got some really good interest, especially at that time. People were thirsty for content, thirsty for learning, wanting to improve themselves while they were sat at home. And from that, we thought, well, why don't we develop a subscription? So rather than people having to sign up to each of these individual every month, get the opportunity to sign up to an annual subscription. You get to see every single one whilst you remember all the live ones that are coming up, and you get access to all the ones that we've done previously on demand. And that is where the WOBI Pass was born from. And so, it evolved after about sort of 9 months of being in the pandemic, and sort of that we were able to roll that out. And as Joe said, it's kind of transitioned from being at the time seen as sort of more of an individual sort of product or solution for individuals, to becoming a solution both for individuals and also for companies, as you're testament to, Renee, in terms of how organizations can utilize the WOBI Pass at scale to upskill leadership, management, training within their organizations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for me as a leader, that actually was the biggest value proposition, right? I had a very large and diverse population of sellers in different, not only countries, but at different stages of their career. Some of them were more technical than others. So topics like innovation were more relevant. Some of them were young leaders. So all the topics around leadership. Some were project managers. So things around change management was very relevant. And WOBI Pass does allow for a leader to enable their people at scale. It was almost like sending them to mini MBA programs. And it is just such a wonderful opportunity. I highly recommend it to any leader out there who is looking to provide some cutting edge thought leadership to their people, and then also use it as a platform to facilitate discussion sessions or masterminds so they can take those lessons and really implement them in their organizations. Absolutely one of my favorites. Okay, team, we're coming to the home stretch. So I have just two more questions. The first one, Joe, I don't know if we have this available this year in New York, but I know last year there was, after the event, a special session with Danielle Lamar on creative leadership that I thought was phenomenal, and was so lucky to attend. And it was wonderful because it was a very small group. We were able to just interact and engage with such a brilliant man on creativity, on leadership, and all of the things. So it was wonderful. Do you have something similar this year to offer, or maybe not necessarily attached to the World Business Forum, but do you offer some of those throughout the year?
We don't currently have a similar session that's programmed for after the event, like that was on the third day of World Business Forum, unofficial third day.
Yeah.
Unless Chris has something else he wants to tell me about right now. But
you heard it here.
But we are always looking at whether it's a partnership with someone like Mr. Lamar, or maybe shortened sessions, or other opportunities for in-person events like that. We're always looking at new opportunities like that.
I love that.
One thing if I could just sort of come in as well. So the one thing that we are looking to explore, either in 2025, potentially in 2026, but that we're looking at the moment in terms of the evolution of what we're looking to at the World Business Forum, is hopefully bring it to other parts of North America. And so this is something that we had done. So it's been a while back now.
Breaking news.
Back in the day. Yeah, exactly. So this is, we did, so probably 10, 15 or plus years ago now, I think we did a World Business Forum in Chicago. I think we did one in LA as well. And we're currently looking at opportunities to bring the forum to other parts of the US, and potentially Canada as well. So this is something that's very much on our radar. We're exploring the opportunities around that at the moment. And although for the New York event, we get people coming in from all over the country, but we think that there is certainly scope to take it to a different region as well. And so perhaps people down in Texas or in Florida or wherever it may be on the West Coast, or don't have quite so far to travel to New York. And so that's so watch this space on that. Hopefully we'll have some news about that in coming weeks and months.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. And actually, you anticipated my question, because it was looking ahead, what can we expect from WOBI and for the World Business Forum? So you answered that. Thank you both so much. I want to remind the audience, we're going to have 2 more sessions on this when we're actually going to dive a little deeper on the speakers for our New York event this year. The venue, which is a change of venue, is very exciting. Therefore, we're going to cover that in our second and third sessions. I hope this really was super valuable for everyone out there. Joe and Chris have also been very generous and created an offer for Clean Canvas Consulting, because growth is so much funner when you do it with lots of people. And I want to take some folks with me this year to New York so we can grow together and enjoy the city together as well. So thank you so much. Joe will be posting a form, and I'll be posting it as well to get some feedback from everyone. Chris and Joe, thank you so much for your time. This was immensely valuable. We had shy people that didn't ask us questions, but I'm sure we'll get some comments and some more feedback. And on the next session, they'll be a little bit more relaxed. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you, Renee. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.